Now, New York has a same-sex marriage law. And these two fellows are being interviewed, and I'm just catching a little piece of it because I'm still on vacation and I don't want to get angry. I'm going to be on the LA freeways fast enough, soon enough, so I'm just still trying to relax. But here's what I hear. I hear we just want the same rights that everybody else has. We just want equal rights, that's all. We don't want special rights. We just want equal rights. And so it's a nice-looking young man in a suit with a tie. By the way, I'm just aware of it as I'm thinking back. He's wearing a suit and a tie. He's dressed like Mr. Conventional. He's got short-cut hair. There's another fellow like him there. And again, I didn't watch it much, but I just heard this thing. And what I thought when I heard that is I thought, what a brilliant way to advance your view. Actually, that wasn't my first thought. My first thought was frustration because of the brilliance. The frustration is the idea is really bad, but it is very easy to promote it in a persuasive way, and very difficult to promote the good, the right, and the true regarding this issue in a persuasive way. All a guy has to say is, I just want equality. I just want the same rights as you. I don't want special rights. I just want the same rights that you have. Now, as a matter of fact, and those of you who've heard me talk about this, we have a lot of material on the website that you can look up regarding same-sex marriage. And by the way, it's same-sex marriage, not gay marriage, because the government does not care about your sexual preference. It cares about your gender. But it's passed as gay marriage. Don't you make that mistake. Don't make it around me. I'll correct you right away. Okay? It's same-sex marriage. That's the issue. And it was frustrating for me watching this because I thought it's as easy to defend same-sex marriage with a soundbite or a slogan, but the issue is really vital and important and critical, deeply critical for our culture, and almost nobody knows how to defend the issue. The rank-and-file Christian doesn't. And I'm sympathetic to that. In fact, when I first started talking about this, when I realized I was going to be forced to have to talk about this, I started my talk by saying this is a hard one to deal with. I don't mean it's hard to deal with on the merits. I've worked out my thinking on this, and I'm going to offer you some thoughts here in a moment. I think you'll be able to see the argument, if you will, but it is hard to deal with when having conversations with other people because it just sounds bigoted and mean-spirited. Even if you're not acting bigoted and mean-spirited, when you're denying the other guy his rights. That's the way it's been put. Okay? And so so it's easy to defend this with slogans. It's hard to speak against it properly with arguments. I think the idea is wrong, but it's easy to promote a bad idea, especially when people don't know how to think about these things. So that was my real emotional reaction to this kind of thing. Here is the issue, and again, I've struggled with trying to find a soundbite at least to start this off to get it going. So if you're in a conversation with somebody, I'll give you the reason that this approach, the equality approach, is the wrong approach, because it presumes that marriage is a word that even applies to same-sex couples. Let me say that again. It presumes that marriage is a word that even applies to same-sex couples. Frank Beckwith made a statement years ago that, like many that he makes, is very clever, kind of funny, and really to the point. And what he said regarding this issue of same-sex marriage is, just because you can eat an ashtray doesn't make it food. Now, that's got the twist that Beckwith is good for, you know, but it's a good point. Just because you can eat it doesn't mean it's food. Just because you can walk down the aisle and say I do when you pledge your troth to each other doesn't mean it's a marriage. And see, this gets to the heart of the question. And this is a question you might want to ask. When a person says, I just want equality. Here's the question, is marriage something in particular? Is it a thing in itself? Does it have a fixed definition, if you will, or is it just whatever we want to make it? This is what's at stake. Is it a thing in itself? If you're a philosopher, you can put it this way. Does it have a natural teleology? Does it have an internal logic to it, if you will? Or is it just whatever? Well, marriage is whatever. It used to be one thing, and now we can make it into another. Is it a cultural convention? That's what's at issue. Now, I think marriage has a natural teleology. I think what marriage is the union of a man and a woman for a long period of time in a stable relationship to make a family. And a family is not the two of them. The family is 3, 4, or 5 or more. In other words, this is how you propagate the species. It is a unit of civilization. And since same-sex couples don't make kids, they don't make families that we're concerned with here. And I'm not going to diss somebody and say, well, if you don't have kids, you're not a family. But I'm getting to the natural teleology of it. These are natural components of human civilization that function in a particular way and are protected because they have such a vital function. They are protected by the community, call it the government. They are regulated. They are, what's the word, privileged by the community, call it the government, so that there is a security of this central unit which by nature and as a rule and as a group produce the next generation. I choose those words carefully, as a rule, as a group, and by nature, because long-term committed heterosexual unions do that, and that's worth protecting. Same-sex unions do not, and so we don't have a say in it. People can do what they want. Well, what about my rights? What about them? I want to have equal rights. What right does a straight, I'm talking about sexually straight American, have that a gay American does not have? Well, you can get married, so can you. No, I can't. Sure you can. You can do exactly what I can do. I can marry the eligible member of the opposite sex that I want, and so can you. You don't want to? Okay. Doesn't mean you don't have the right that I have. Well, I want to marry who I love. Well, I can't do that. I can't indiscriminately marry whoever I love. We have exactly the same rights. Now, what you want is not a special right for you. You just want a new right for everybody. That is, you want the government, which is the culture, to affirm that your union, your same-sex union, is exactly the same kind of thing as a heterosexual union. That's what you're looking for. So this is not about new rights. This is about a new respect, if you will. And I'm not saying this with animosity. I'm just simply trying to observe what's going on. This is a group of people who has the same rights. They just don't have the same respect. They don't have the affirmation. And by getting the government, that is the representative of the people, to call their relationship a marriage, which it's not, even when the government gives them a license, they will get the respect and affirmation that all heterosexual couples get, which is exactly what they're after. So people in the culture now, I'm not getting biblical on you, I'm not getting theistic on you, I'm not even getting moral on you right now. I'm just saying, you guys, in our collective culture, you have to ask yourself a question. Are same-sex unions exactly the same kinds of things as heterosexual unions? And, this is companion question to it, is marriage just any old thing we want to call it? Or want to make it? Is it anything? And it doesn't matter, you can mix and match men and women, or men and men, and women, and that's okay, because there's no difference. And after all, marriage is a malleable thing because it's not tied to any natural function of humanity. Well, then same-sex marriage is for you. But you can't stop there. Because if marriage is anything you want to make it, then it's anything you want to make it. If there's no natural teleology, then there are no restrictions, there are no limits. So, polygamy, polyamory, there's a couple of different polys that relate here. I get them mixed up now. But rub-a-dub-dub, 3 men in a tub and a potted plant and a spaniel. Why not? And I'm not trying to be frivolous here. And some of you are saying, well, that's ridiculous. To which I respond, you're right. It is ridiculous. But it follows from your view. If same-sex marriage is legitimate marriage, it is only because there is no difference between same-sex unions and heterosexual unions. There's no fundamental distinction, and the word marriage is completely malleable. It's whatever we want to make it. And if that's the case, then it's whatever we want to make it. And by the way, polygamy is right at the doorstep right now. It's in the courts already, following the same rationale. Now, my answer is, I think marriage is a particular thing. Doesn't mean I'm mean to gay people. It means that I'm just making an observation about the nature of the world that's accurate. That's all. Gay people want to live together, share their goods, whatever. Well, nobody's stopping them. You want to walk down the aisle and have a ceremony? Nobody's stopping you. You're saying that the culture has to declare that you're just like everybody, that those relationships are just like any other relationship? Well, most people don't agree with that, and I certainly don't, and for good reason. Not driven by animosity, just an obvious look at the nature of humanity. And I think that distinction's important, so I'm going to cash it out here. What's the harm? The harm is once you do this, you're saying that marriage isn't anything in particular, and then marriage is out the window. It's a completely relativistic, subjectivistic thing. It is a social construction. It's whatever. And whenever marriage becomes whatever, then people quit getting married. I mean, this started in the 60s. I don't need that piece of paper. Look at it, if you don't need the piece of paper, why do the same-sex couples need it so badly now? Because in the 60s and since then, people have lost respect for the institution, and so they've abandoned it. Now, has that been good for culture, and particularly good for children, or bad for children? I'll let you decide. I think the answer is pretty obvious. But anything that causes instability in a natural structure like family is going to hurt kids in the long run. Tomorrow? No, probably not Monday, since this is Sunday. But see, adults are not supposed to be thinking short-term, but long-term. We're supposed to look at the consequences of our ideas, the consequences of our institutions, the consequences of our actions.